My Lords, if I may start with a preliminary remark, it is that my noble friend Lord Young of Cookham said that he thought that the government's determination to trammel itself in the way that Clause 2 does was ideologically driven, a commitment to a certain vision of the railways based on essentially a political ideology. Now, I wouldn't be so bold as to disagree with my noble friend. He may well be right. But I would add that there is another way of looking at this, and it's one I referred to in the debate at second reading. What really, I think, is driving the government's approach to this is that it is absolutely convinced itself that the only way in which the railways can operate is if there is a single controlling brain, so that every train that is run in this country for passenger service purposes is run by Great British Railways, and that Great British Railways is going to be the sole provider of railway services. And this, I think, is a truly ideological obsession. It's almost a psychological fixation that appears to have gripped the government, and it is one that needs to be tested, and questions are being asked about it around the House from all sides, from every side of the House, about its practical effects, and we're getting no answer except it's in the manifesto, which really is no answer to a passenger standing on a platform waiting for a train which was operating perfectly satisfactorily in private ownership and is now simply not arriving. Let me turn first of all to the amendments in this group standing in my name. They are numbers 4, 10, 14 and 15. And if I had written the explanatory statements rather better, members would understand, perhaps they do, that these four amendments operate as one. They are consequential on each other, and they have a single effect. And the effect is to say that the Secretary of State, in awarding new services, must put them out to tender, but on a concession basis. And it defines what a concession is in Amendment 14 as a contract under which the franchising authority specifies rail services to be provided by a private sector entity and retains the risk of fluctuations in the receipt of fares. In other words, this amendment does something which Transport for London has done with great success in relation to buses, the London Overground Rail Services, the Wimbledon Tram, and the Docklands Light Railway. They are all operated on this basis, and there are no complaints there might be complaints from customers about this, that, or the other, but there are no complaints about the basis on which the services are operated contractually. And of course, TfL has chosen to brand them all under its own branding, so members of the public and passengers are not even aware very often that they're being operated on this basis. So we have a system that works, and it is one that we should be considering very seriously, by contrast to the determination of the government that all of these services are to be taken in-house and run with a single employer by a great single controlling brain. The amendment does something else. The amendment does something else. It is in conformity with the Williams Review, which I thought was the plan to which, generally speaking, there was consensus we should be operating. There is no other plan. There is no document of any weight or substance that has been produced as a result of an independent review for the future of the railways. Now, a most slightly astonishing intervention from the noble Lord the Minister in our last debate was to say, when I drew attention to what it says on page 55 of the Williams Review about the concession model being the pattern taken from TfL that should be used nationally, was that Mr. Williams no longer thought that, because he'd rung him up and he'd said that we need to have it nationalised. So how much else in the Williams Review has been vitiated by random phone calls made by the minister to its author. How much is left of the Williams Review if it's capable of being rewritten by the minister on the basis of claimed phone calls with Mr. Williams? Now, it happens that Mr. Williams and I served together on the board of Transport for London when the noble Lord the Minister was the Commissioner of Transport for London. So I have to tell him that if I were to look into my contacts in my telephone, I think I would find Mr. Williams' telephone number was in my telephone as well. And so it's perfectly possible that we could pursue this debate on the basis of various individual and private phone calls that we had with Mr. Williams about what he actually meant, what he thinks now, whether his view has changed, and then what will be left of this report. But without this report, there is no report. There is no plan. The government is now, it turns out, inviting us to take a step completely into the dark. It's not just an act of faith, as I said in an earlier group, that they can run the trains better. It is a belief that they are going to give us a better plan for the future, but they cannot tell us what the plan is, whereas at least previously they had some basis for saying what it was going to be, and the whole thing really is turning into the most dreadful shambles. The other debate, the other amendments in this group, I've explained my own amendments. I would like to know why concessions don't work. I would like to know why something which is so successful in London isn't going to be allowed. I would like to know why what was recommended by Williams isn't allowed. I don't expect to hear the detailed explanation from the noble Lord the Minister that those questions deserve, I'm sad to say. But the other amendments in this group have similar effect. The noble Lord, my noble friend Lord Lansley, would like the government to have the power, where it chooses to do so, to go out to tender and allow some of these wicked private entities. I may be wicked myself when I say that actually, of course, many of these private entities are not very private. Some of them are the subsidiaries of our great European railway friends. They're actually state-owned bodies from Europe. And who knows whether the Prime Minister, as he creeps towards a great reset and a love-in with the European Union, wouldn't actually find it quite useful to be able to say that, yes, indeed, the Italian railways and Deutsche Bahn and Ferrovial, and not Ferrovial, sorry, Renfe could bid for services running on our railways just as they can at the moment, and that they're not going to be kicked out of Britain, but Mrs. von der Leyen, we're going to let them back in. Wouldn't that little bit of flexibility that Lord Lansley would like to be able to give to the government be rather welcome, possibly in the future? My noble friend Lord Young of Cookham made a very good case for his amendments, but he also made, and I thought it was sad, I echo the comments of whoever said it, that it's a great pity that the noble Lord Liddell isn't here. It was the noble Baroness Lady Randerson who said it, as I recall. It's a great pity that the noble Lord Liddell isn't here to move his very interesting and intriguing amendment. But it was, to a large extent, I think, the argument for it was made, and made very well indeed, by the noble Lord Young of Cookham. The possibilities of collaboration with the private sector, indeed with community groups, and when we come to later amendments relating to devolution, the possibility of collaboration with local authorities and local government. All of these are worth exploring if we're going to reform our railways. All of these are being shut off, closed down now by the word only that the noble Lord Lansley and others are effectively suggesting be deleted, because it is only a private sector contract to a private sector company that the government is going to allow contracts to be awarded. And how much better things might be if they had the flexibility that would allow us, in fact, to head towards a better railway, and one for which we might have a plan, which I now realise, having carried this weighty and valuable document around in recent weeks to prepare myself for this debate, it is as nothing, it is as writ on water, a mere telephone call, a ghostly intervention from outside the chamber can rewrite this document at any moment. We have no direction, we have no idea where we are going, the train is setting off, and we are completely adrift.